We are factoring by squares of binomials today, and so again, this is just another factoring method to add on to the list of factoring methods I've already given you guys. And so I've put up here in the on the top of the screen two asterisks to help us with how to factor these stuff, and they're pretty just generic equations. Plugging in some numbers that's going to help us to arrive at the situation or arrive at the factoring expressions that we need for today. And so take a look at them, write them down, and what we'll do, just like we've done the last couple of days, is work through getting from the left side of the equal sign to the right, and then also working backwards, so starting from the right side and working backwards. Okay, so make sure you write those down so it's a little easier for us today. And what I want to point out is the difference between the two stars that we have up here. And so what we have is what you might be given is a parenthesis that has two terms, something A or B, and you're squaring it. And this is a quick way, a quick formula that if you can remember this, this pattern here, all you have to do is just plug in numbers and simplify, and you'll get how to factor these. Okay, so the main difference is that if you look in the parenthesis right here where I had the arrow, there's a plus here. Okay, so I'm going to circle it just so you notice it. Okay, so there's a plus here, and what that tells us is that our first sign on the other side is going to be plus. So in the long equation here, the long math expression here, if you have a plus as the first sign, that means in the parenthesis you have to have a plus. Whereas here on the bottom I have a minus in the parenthesis, which means that my first sign is also going to be minus. Okay, so no matter what, you're going to have a plus and as the second sign, but the first sign is what's going to help us determine the difference between the two. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with this. And like I said, we're going to start first by working from the left side of the equal sign to the right. So the directions for this is to express each as a square of a binomial. Okay, so because this sign is minus, what that tells me here is that my first sign is going to be minus, and then of course, like I told you, the last sign is always plus. So for this number 1 we're going to be working on, it's going to be a situation number 2, or star number 2 here. Okay, and so our A is whatever is in this first slot here, which is this, which is T. Okay, and our B is whatever here in this third slot, which is B, and we just plug it in. So A squared in this problem, A is T. So T squared minus 2. This 2 that's here is always there no matter what. Doesn't matter what the problem is, it's always 2. Okay? 2 times A is T, B, which is 4, plus B squared, which is 4 squared. And we simplify this out. Okay? So T to the second stays T squared minus 2 times T times 4 would be 8T, plus 4 squared, which is 16, and that's our final answer. Okay, so we're really just plugging in numbers and simplifying, and that's it. Okay, let's look at number 2 because it's a little different than the first one. I have two numbers now, but you take this whole thing, and that whole thing is A. And you take this whole thing of the 2W, and that whole thing is B. So I see a plus sign here, which means that my first sign has to be plus, second sign is plus like it always is, and here we go, filling in. So this is going to be like just like star number 1. So A squared is 3Z squared plus 2, that 2 that's always there. A is 3Z, B is 2W, and then B squared. Okay, and all you're doing now is you're simplifying this out. So I'm gonna do this underneath here. So remember, this 2 here goes to the 3, and it also goes to the Z. So 3 squared is 9, and then Z squared, plus 2 times 3 is 6, times 2 is 12, ZW, plus, and then our b squared, remember, don't forget to distribute that 2 there, 2 there. So 2 squared is 4, w squared, and that's all I can do with this. So here's my final answer. Okay. Let's try one more like this. And so here we go. My a is this whole thing, the 6b. Okay. My b is 2. So I end up with a squared, or let's look at the sign first. So since the sign in the parentheses plus, my first sign is plus, and my last sign is always plus, so I can just write that in. Okay. What goes in this first slot is a squared, which is 6b squared, plus the 2 that's always there. A is 6b, our b is 2. Okay. And then we get, oops, what am I doing here? Thinking of this generically here. Okay, so, and then this last slot in this parentheses is our b, so our b is 2. We square that. Okay, so let's simplify. Again, please, please, please don't forget that that squared goes to the 6 too. So 6 squared is 36. B squared plus 2 times 6 is 12. Times 2 is 24. And then I just drop that b down. Plus 2 squared is 4. And that's all I can do with this. And that's it, final answer. Okay? So that's working from left to right from the 2 equations that I gave you there. So let's look at the type of question they might give you when they're asking you to work the other direction. Okay? And so the way that they phrase these questions are right here in the purple. They'll ask you to decide whether each trinomial is a perfect square if it is factored. So basically what the answer for these is going to look like is yes or no. Okay, but if you get a yes, you got a factor. Okay, so answer for these are yes or no. If you get a yes, you got a factor. So here's the steps for this. So write these down, and then we're going to use these to kind of help us push through the problems here. So remember, a square means that if we have a number, so let's say 4, we're thinking of two numbers that are exactly the same that can equal, that can multiply to 4. So in this case, it's 2 and 2. So that's kind of what we're looking at when we're looking at numbers that are square when I say that. So if the number has two other numbers that can multiply together to get it, and they have to be identical numbers. Okay, so here we go. Let's look at number 4, and what we want to do is we want to look at the first term. So first term means this guy. Okay, so is this is the first term, can you take a square of it? Yes, right? That square is 3m. Okay, second step, I ask you, can the last term be a square? So which is just 4. So yes, okay. And the square of 4 is 2, or square root of 4 is 2. Last thing I ask you, so neglecting the sign, so we don't care about whether it's minus or plus right now. All I care about is just this middle part here. Okay, so is the middle part the product? Is the middle product 2 the product of the first term and last term? Okay, so what that's trying to say is the square root of the first term is 3m, which you told me. So you take whatever you get in step 1, and you multiply that to whatever you get in step 2. And once you have those two guys, you're going to multiply that by 2 on the outside. That's basically what step 3 is saying. So one more time, I'm going to erase this here. Basically what step 3 is asking you to do is to look at the first one and rewrite it. Multiply what you get in the second step to it. Okay, so the first step times the second step, and then times whatever you get by 2. So what that looks like is, it looks like this. 3m times 2 is 6m. 2 times 6m is 12m. So neglecting the sign, do those guys match up? The answer to that is a yes. Okay, so all these steps work out. And remember, when you have a yes, that means you have to factor. So the factor is easy. Let me show you how to do that. So you're going to open a parenthesis, You're going to put a little square on the outside because that's what we were doing if we're working backwards from right to left with that equation. To figure out what sign goes here, you look at the original problem, and remember the first sign has to match up with whatever in the parenthesis. So in this case, since the first sign is minus, I put a minus in here. Okay, and then to fill in each side, whatever I get in step 1 goes on the left side. Whatever I get in step 2 goes on the right side. So here is our final answer. So you tell me yes, and then you factor it. Okay, so that's what that would look like. Let's look at number 5. Okay, so here's step 1, step 2, and then step 3. So in step 1, can I take, is this a perfect square? It is, right? You can do 5y. 5y times 5y would give me 25y squared. In this one, I would get, yes it is, because 1 times 1 would give me 1. Okay, now let's try step 3. So what we want to do for step 3 is we go, step 1 is 5y times step 2, which is 1, and then we want to multiply that answer by 2. Okay, so in the parenthesis, 5y times 1 is 5y. 2 times 5y is 10y. So does this answer and that middle term match up? They don't, right? They're completely different numbers. Okay, so this answer for this is no, and there's no further work. So if you get a no, you just stop there. Okay? So for it to be a yes, it has to satisfy all 3 steps, like how it did in number 1. Everything worked out. So in number 5, this third step failed, so it didn't work out. So our answer to this is no. Alright, let's try 6. Okay, so I'm going to write my 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Okay, square root of this first guy. 2x. Okay, square root of the last guy is 5. Now the middle one, don't worry about the sign, just worry about the term itself, okay? So I get 2x times 5, so the first step answer times the second step answer, then we're going to multiply that by 2. In the parenthesis, I get 10x. If I simplify that further, I get 20x. So neglecting the sign, does this 20x and that 20x match up? It sure does. Oops. Sure does, so here we go. My answer is yes, so I gotta write a final factor for this. Since this first sign is minus, my parenthesis has to be minus. Answer for my first step was 2x. Answer for my second step was 5. Put a little square on the outside of there, and then we do that, and we should include the yes too. So there's my extension of my box. Alright, so I hope you're getting the hang of this. This one could be a little tricky. Rewatch this, rewind it, because the pattern follows for the same for all of them. Let's do number 7. It's a little weird because it's a to the 4th problem, but we treat it just like how we have been for all the other to the 4th problems. Okay, so 2 numbers that are exactly the same that could multiply to v to the 4th is v squared. So if you don't believe me, take it to the side. V squared times v squared. Remember, we keep the v's, add the exponents, v to the 4th, okay? So v squared is the square root of v to the 4th. Square root of 49 is 7. Now what we do is we take these guys, first step answer times second step answer, and then drop a 2 in the front of them. Simplify. V squared times 7 is 7v squared. 2 times 7v squared is 14v squared. So does this and that match up, neglecting the sign? It does, yes. Okay, so here's how this looks. Since my first sign is minus, I put a minus in there. My first step answer is v squared. My second step answer is 7. And then I put a squared on the outside. So here's my final answer. And that's it. Okay, so don't forget to take the quiz, write down any questions, and have a great time.